Indie Comics. Today on ORP's Indie Comics Review, we're going to be talking about Vodou Cowboy #1. It was written by Matt Garvey with art by Arjuna Susini. The colors by Dee Cunniffe. The cover was done by Mark Texeira. Now let's talk about this cover. You see it on the screen there. Texeira used chalk, I believe, to do this cover, and it gives it a really gritty, slightly otherworldly feel to that cover. And with a name like Vodou Cowboy, I gotta believe that's what they were going for when reading it. With the blank and ominous eyes in the background, the woman tied to the bed, and the 3 candles burning at who I can only assume is Vodou Cowboy's feet. I have to say a ritual is being performed here, especially with that wizard-looking stuff going on with his hand there. And that definitely puts the Vodou on the cover. He's also wearing the Old West style gun holster set for quick draw on a belt full of bullets. You know, an outfit straight out of Hollywood's westerns, and a cowboy hat that definitely puts the cowboy on the cover. All in all, I think this is a great cover. It sets the mood right off the bat, and all the things you might think of when you hear the name Vodou Cowboy are represented here.
I agree. There's some artists that are just so distinctive that you can recognize their style immediately, and Mark Texeira is certainly one of those for me. As an aside, I actually met Tex once at a con, and he's one of the coolest pros you could ever meet. So I'm really glad to see him, that he's still around and doing covers, especially for indie titles like this one. Now, I also agree that this is some really great work from Tex. He has this deeply moody and shadowy style that works on darker titles, especially horror, like we see here. Now, he made his career on books like Ghostwriter, and his style has grown a lot since those days. But I think he also handles the Western elements very nicely, giving a good sense of what this book is. And you identified a lot of those elements. But I always like a cover that can get across what the comic is about. And this cover certainly does that for me. It's creepy and eerie looking, while also looking period. And Tex got across what the creators probably wanted to show here.
You know, I see we are in 100% agreement with the cover, and that's actually cool that you got to meet him. But, you know, I didn't know how to pronounce the name. I just kind of looked it up on Google, and they said the Brazilian pronunciation was Texeira. So I apologize for pronouncing your name wrong there, Texeira. So I hope you got an autograph from him, did you?
I did, in fact. I have a signed Ghostwriter trade paperback that he did, and nice. I also have an art book that he did that he signed for me, and actually he did like little illustrations in it as well. I really appreciated that he put a lot of effort into it.
Very nice, very nice. That's pretty cool. Well, let's get into the comic. Right from the start, I had to look up what exactly was being referenced with the name Vodou instead of the more familiar, at least to my Western ears, voodoo. Well, it specifically references Haitian Vodou from West Africa. Vodou, meaning spirit or god in the Fon or Ewe languages of West Africa, is a blending of African religious traditions and Catholicism. In the United States, Vodou religious ceremonies are often performed in private group settings where spirits manifest in devotees through possession. Practitioners of Vodou do believe in one God. However, because that one specific God is too far away from them, practitioners call upon spirits or Iwa for aid and guidance. These Iwa are divided into different houses. Some houses have stronger spirits than others. However, a common misconception about Vodou is that all Vodou is evil.
I'll admit to not knowing a whole lot about Vodou, though I don't think you really need that much knowledge of Vodou to follow the story in the comic. Still, it is true that Vodou has been demonized all too often in Western fantasy and horror, so it is nice to see a Vodou practitioner as the hero of this particular story, especially in what is presented here as a classic exorcism tale.
I agree. I agree. I don't think that you have to know all this stuff, but I personally enjoyed it a little bit more after having looked this stuff up. But as you say, it's totally enjoyable with or without said knowledge. They explain what little things you need to know along the way. Um, so the main character is called Grady, and he's a Bokur, meaning a Vodou witch for hire, who is said to serve the Loa with both hands, meaning they practice Vodou for both good and evil. Their practice includes the creation of zombies and awangas. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Um, which are talismans that house spirits. Grady is apparently friends with a sheriff of a small town in the Old West, and Grady gets a letter from him saying that there's a situation that only he can fix, despite the vigorous objections of the local Catholic priests. I don't want to give too much away, but the crux of the issue is Grady going to the town to solve his friend's problem. Being Grady's a Bokur, I have to imagine payment was involved somehow, but I don't recall seeing it take place. As I suppose it's at least possible it was just a friendly favor to the sheriff.
Maybe it wasn't directly shown, though. I'm sure there was an offer of payment that was made at some point. It could have been that payment would have been delivered after the possessed girl was taken care of, but the sheriff just never got the opportunity to make his payment, because he was too dead to do it. Still, I like the idea of the Bokur, as that allows Grady to encounter all kinds of fun Weird West type of adventures. I did find it interesting that the priest was pretty much useless here, as opposed to things like Exorcist, which is a nice twist on the typical exorcism story.
Right? I got the impression that, I mean, aside from his scruples, the priest didn't really have much faith. I say this because he seemed willing to accept Grady after he saw his effectiveness. I mean, he even apologized for not believing. Uh, so, I mean, I found that interesting as well. I wonder if the difference was belief. Was Grady able to deal with it because his faith was secure? I mean, I suppose that's up for debate ultimately, as we don't get enough solid evidence.
That's good as an explanation as any, and it does make sense. So I'm willing to go along with that.
So overall, I really enjoyed this comic. I mean, it was fun and fresh and totally had an awesome combo of the supernatural, paranormal, and a good old-fashioned Western in it. The art inside was gritty and raw feeling, which adds a nice kind of pulp detective kind of feel to it. Despite being a little different than more common art styles, it really works well for this book. The pacing was great. It felt very natural, and again gave me a whole stranger comes riding into town thing, and I loved it. I'm scoring this a solid 5 out of 5. I really liked it across the board.
Yeah, totally. I would agree with the 5 out of 5 on Vodou Cowboy. I couldn't find any noticeable flaws in this book, and that's really saying something. It's a pretty simple story that offers a nice combination of Vodou, Weird West, and exorcism tale in a way that veers nicely from the expected path, which I really appreciate. The art and the visual storytelling are really well done in this issue. Also, Dee Cunniffe helps give this coloring and lighting work a very polished professional look. He has done work for a lot of the big companies, and that experience, I think, serves this title well. This is a high-quality indie title, and it's clear that they've spared no expense in making this comic as good as they could make it. I strongly endorse this one. Go ahead and give this book a shot if it sounds like your thing.
So normally, me and Steve score things just slightly differently, and we have to make like an average score. But both of us already gave Vodou Cowboy the highest score it can get. So, like Steve said, you're definitely going to want to pick this up if this sounds even remotely interesting to you. We think you'll love it as much as we did. But that about wraps up our Indie Comics review of Vodou Cowboy. I guess we'll see you again. Indie Comics. Indie Comics.